Hey everybody, my name is Bindi Mark and I am back with another video. I am continuing a mini-series reviewing a book called The Proper Care and Feeding of Husbands. If you haven't watched my other videos, you might want to check them out and help add some context to this one. Before I get into my mini review, I want to make a couple disclaimers. First and foremost, I am a Christian, and so the Bible is rule of law for me. Number two, the author added a disclaimer that in situations of addiction, abuse, and adultery, this book and its teachings do not apply. And so bear that in mind as we're going over some tips and just things that I felt were pretty important from her book. 12 things that a man needs from his wife. Number one is a man needs to feel strong and needed as a protector for women. Basically to conquer the beast and rescue the fair maiden. I feel like for some people this setup of the man being the hero and the woman being a damsel in distress, some people might take that to be offensive, but I don't. I think that it speaks to kind of just the natural nature of men and women. Just put it plainly, men are bigger and generally stronger than women, and women tend to be generally smaller and weaker than men. And so just in the physiological differences that exist between men and women, men are better suited for some tasks better than a woman would be, and vice versa. Women are better suited for some tasks over a man. And so when it talks about a man needing to feel strong, needing to feel like he is a protector for his woman, I think that that just plays directly into the nature and even the design of a man. And I think that we as wives, we do well to play into the designs that God has set in place. And I think that this point beautifully instructs women to do that. Number two, what every man wants is for his woman to make him feel that he is strong and the head of the household. I'm not talking caveman style, dragging the woman around by her hair, but just as the leader of the family. I think that this is also nicely plays into the biblical mandate that calls for men to be the head of their wives and ultimately to be the leaders of their household. I think that because God has called men to lead, especially in circumstances of the family, within the context of the family, the man, the husband, has been called to lead. And so I think that when a woman steps aside and allows the man to do that, he actually functions far better than when the woman is trying to jostle with him for position of leadership in the marriage. A man will actually function for his wife even better if she lets him have his role and doesn't try to usurp that position from him. As speaking from the position of a wife who has been gifted a great husband from the Lord, and I do see him as a gift, him functioning as the leader of the family makes my life easier. I really don't have to carry the burden that can be just like the worrying and the anxiety and sometimes trying to figure out all the missing pieces and how are we going to lead the family here and there. My husband, because I step out of his way and give him space, and sometimes I have to remind myself to do that. So I don't want to sound like I'm someone who does this perfectly, because there definitely have been times where I have jostled with him for that position of leader. But what I find is that when I step out of the way, I actually do much better as a wife and as a woman when I let my husband occupy the role that God designed him to occupy. Number three, a man wants respect, kindness, and love from his woman. I think that sometimes when we as wives get familiar with our husbands, we can not be as kind. I've noticed this, just not even just with wives, I think sometimes with family members in general, we can be more respectful and kind to a stranger on the street than we are to our own members of our household. And I think that for wives, this is particularly dangerous, especially considering that it is the Lord who has commanded us to demonstrate respect for our husband. Not only are we making a terrible mistake as it relates to our marriage, we are defiantly disobeying direct commands from the Lord to respect, and I would say, and also to love our husbands. And so this is something that I was like, let me keep this at the forefront of my mind. Let me not allow familiarity to cause me to sin against the Lord, and that I don't extend the kindness and respect that my husband deserves, if for no other reason other than the position he holds in my life. Number 4, A man wants to be put on a pedestal, not so that he can look down on everyone, but to show him that he is the most important thing to his woman. I think that this ties in really nicely to how earlier in the book she talked about not putting extended family members before your husband. I think that the Bible speaks to leaving your father and mother and cleaving to your husband. Since we are women, cleaving to our husband. The original text says to your wife, speaking to men. But what that means is literally leave your father and mother, cling to your husband. And I think that when we obey the Lord in that, when we obey him, it bears tremendous fruit in our marriage relationships. When our husbands recognize that, as far as earthly relationships go, that literally no one comes before him, a husband, I think, feels so accepted and affirmed by that he's empowered to do anything and everything within his power to please his wife. So I think that when we as wives make the mistake, she says to put them on a pedestal, but I think what she's just really getting at is that he wants to be shown that he's the most important person to his woman. When we do that, I think sometimes we don't want to do that because we think that by making our husbands the most important earthly relationship, we're making ourselves kind of a doormat, or however you want to look at it. But in actuality, we are doing ourselves an incredible disservice by not prioritizing our husbands, because quite in many ways there isn't anyone who's going to go to bat for you like your husband is. I mean, even if you falsely believe that your parents are going to do more for you than your husband, your parents will eventually die. And I know that that's kind of crass. It's kind of crass to say that, but I come, like I said, I come from a family where there is a legacy of misprioritizing relationships as it relates to marriage. My family always prioritized their family of origin over their chosen spouses. And what I saw happen time and time again is that there would be a wife who would prioritize, say, her mother and kind of abandon her husband. And ultimately those marriages would break down or dissolve, or they would stay intact but be very strained. And then guess what would happen over time? The mother would die. Because that's what happens with older generations. Each generation passes on. And then the daughter who prioritized her mother inappropriately now found herself kind of lost and alone without a spouse who was really kind of given to her by God to live life with her and to go on into old age together. But the daughter, in a misguided way, discarded that relationship or didn't prioritize that relationship and prioritized a relationship that was on its way out. The next point says, a man needs his woman to show him that she needs his strength to help her through life. I was watching some trash show probably like many years ago, probably like the Ricky Lake show, like that's how long ago it was. And I remember they had a couple on, and in a very I'm an independent woman and I don't need no man type dogma, she was telling her male partner, I don't need you, but I want you. And I remember they panned to him. He said, well, if you don't need me, then what am I even here for? And she repeated again, I don't need you, but I want you. And it looked as though that had no consolation for him whatsoever. And reading this book made me understand why. Men need to feel, and I'm not even going to say men, because I'm not really talking about men in general. I'm talking about your husband, our husbands, my husband. Our husbands need to feel like they are needed. That is actually what is an integral part of them feeling motivated to just go through the hardships that can be life. Because yeah, I'm going to deal with the stress at work. Yeah, I'm going to deal with some of the anxieties that can come from pulling a family on my back. Why? Because they need me. And I think that some of us have been wrongly taught that I don't need no man. And like, yeah, I guess you could design a life that you don't need a man. But if you have willfully chosen to take on a husband of your own volition, it does not behoove you to believe, or even worse, to utter that you do not need him. It's a crippling statement. It's a crippling blow to that man's motivation to serve you, actually. And I think that many of us women have been misguided to think that to say, I don't need a man, is a kind of badge of honor. But what we're actually doing, what that's kind of like, is like driving a car, getting out and shooting one of the tires, getting back in the car and driving it. Like, you would have been much better had you not blown one of the tires out. The car would function for you better. He will function for you far better if he feels needed by you. The man should be the major breadwinner in the family. Every man needs a battle or war to win to prove to himself that he is strong and capable of conquering any and all dragons that life throws his way. Taking care of his family by working and providing are his battles. I think that this is another one that may rub some people the wrong way, because different families are set up in different ways. And yet I would say I still tend to agree with the author. As a woman who did feel called to be home, it has just bolstered my husband in just my husband's always been a confident man, but I think that there's just something a little bit more special when a man can really know, like, wow, I'm carrying this family. Like, I'm a man who is responsible for a woman, and I'm responsible for children, and I am their provider. I'm the one who puts food in their mouths. I'm the one who puts clothes on their backs. I'm the one who puts a roof over their head. I just think it does something, and I feel like I've witnessed that even in my own personal life. I think it does something for a man to be able to experience and to see evidence of his own competence in how he provides for a family. A man needs enthusiastic approval, appreciation, and respect from his wife for being a competent man, husband, and father. I think that this was another good call out as well. I think that one thing that I took away from this is that I can make it my job to be more proactive about praising my husband for the things that he does right. I think that men in general, as she is stating here, respond much better to approval, appreciation, and respect than they do criticism. The next point is a man needs his wife to show some interest in his interests, especially when it's an activity that she may not get or like. Just being there is important. This was another one that I was like, okay, I'm gonna give this one some thought. My husband and I are polar opposites in many, many ways. So much so that we have different tastes in music. We have different ideas of what fun is. We pass the time we pass our leisure time in different ways. And so what that has meant is that depending on how you look at it, it could be a challenge for finding overlap, or it could be an incredible opportunity to demonstrate real love. A man needs his wife to greet him after work with love and enthusiasm. This, I think, could probably be a small and overlooked thing, but I think it plays into the notion that, like, when we as wives, especially as homemakers, are at home, we would do well to remember that our husbands are going out and working probably very difficult jobs, even if it's not a physically demanding job, just mentally, psychologically, emotionally demanding jobs. And so when they get home, we really want the place that they call home to be an oasis, a place that after a long day, they can just finally And I think that one of the ways that we as wives can do that is to do exactly what she suggested. When your husband gets home, don't ask him to take the trash out. Don't ask him to watch the kids. Just give him a big hug, a kiss. If he's carrying a bag, grab his bag for him. Let him have a seat and just take 15-20 minutes to just debrief from just a taxing day. The next thing she says, a man needs his wife to care about the day he's had. I feel like this definitely plays into what I was talking about before, just showing some interest. Even if you don't know the details about his job and everything, just being able to listen to him debrief. That is something that I myself have seen in my own marriage. My husband, he has a really kind of taxing job, and sometimes the way that he just comes down off of that is just talking about what happened. And it's a small thing that I can do to just sit and listen. That means a great deal to him. And so it's something to bear in mind if you're a new wife or an upcoming wife. Like, just listen to him when he's done with his work. The next thing she says is a man needs to know that his wife is sexually satisfied by him. I think that this can be so as you're developing your sexual life with your husband, I think that communication becomes key, because I think that the temptation here is when it says a man needs to know that his wife is sexually satisfied. The temptation might be to fake satisfaction, and that's not going to actually pan out well for you or him. It's not going to pan out well for you because you'll be largely sexually frustrated, and then it's not going to pan out well for him because if he discovers that you've been deceiving him this whole time, he's going to feel very betrayed. So I think that to arrive at a place that a man can know that his wife is sexually satisfied by him, we as wives have to be okay and comfortable to discuss sex and sexual activity with our husbands. Like, it has to actually be a conversation that we can have. It's definitely may not feel very comfortable, because I mean, under what circumstances are you really discussing the nitty-gritty of like your sexual desires and preferences, right? But with your husband, you have to get to a place where you can do that. Another thing to think about is if your husband doesn't satisfy you sexually, like, have you told him what does? Do you even know? So that might be like something that the two, a husband and wife, can work through together. And I would say even pray about and ask God to be in the midst of it, because a man knowing, a husband knowing that he has satisfied his wife is incredibly important to him. The last point, a man needs his wife's encouragement in order to be a man. I could also see I could understand how someone might take this like, dang, like, are we responsible for him being a man? I would say that it is a man's responsibility to be a man, but it is a wife's responsibility to make it easier for him. And I think that, again, what might come across as insult, like, dang, that's not my job to make him be a man. What I actually think is it's God's design to safeguard the position of the wife in the husband's life. I think that God has, in so many ways, in intricate ways, kind of in secret ways, has tethered a husband to his wife such that a man will not do well without his wife. It's not an insult to be told that he needs your encouragement to be a man. It's literally what secures your position in his life, because he needs you. He actually needs your encouragement. In the same way that she mentioned earlier that a man needs the approval, appreciation, and respect from his wife, that those are not demands. Those are like, please. Like, that's him begging, like, please approve of me. Please appreciate me. Please respect me. I depend on that. And in a similar way, a man needing his wife's encouragement to continue the hard thing of being a man despite the pressures, despite the anxieties, despite the burden, that is quite literally, when they say like behind every great man is a great woman, that's what they're talking about. Because a man will literally become, I think in many ways, will manifest the best version of himself with the encouragement of a wife bolstering him. It is you, in a way, it's like you are the wind in his sails. Like, he's still a boat whether there's no wind in his sails, but man, he gets momentum from the wind, and that wind that we provide is our encouragement. And so it's not an insult like, dang, I gotta make him be a man too. No, it's you get to be that wind in his sails. You get to have such a high standing position in his life. And so anyway, that was the full list of the things that she mentioned. I want to know what you guys think about this. I really encourage people to read, women, wives, to read this book, because it provides so much wisdom, things that probably just don't really dawn on us women naturally, but it is incredibly helpful to read it and understand it. It'll help you understand how to kind of engage and interact with your husband in a way that will yield literal fruit. It's not just 10 tips to like make him like to get a man to want. No, like these really play into the way that God has designed the man, designed him to think and to behave. And these are quite like, she's giving y'all keys. She's giving us keys on how to most effectively yield the fruitfulness of a man and the purpose that a man can serve in the context of marriage and in family, and much of it kind of hinges on us as wives. I think there's a Bible verse that says like, a wise woman builds her home up, but a foolish woman tears it down. Like, I think that in so many words, this book is outlining the ways in which a woman can build up her home or tear it down. She's giving you very specific things that can be done and utilized and used today. You can start them today. So anyway, let me know what you guys think about her 12 or I think however many it was suggestions on things that a man needs from his wife. And as always, thank you for tuning in, and I will see you next time.